I can't imagine. And again, I always have to preface this by saying I know it's not just about the audio logo, but I just can't imagine that when you're designing a print logo, why you don't also sit there and go, wonder what that thing would sound like if it could make sound, and then develop that too,
Hmm.
and then present both of them at the same time or in combination, and give yourself one more sense to to have. I mean, a lot of the brands have a smell.
Hmm.
McDonald's
Yep.
has French fries, and I mean, there's a lot of them already using that sense. Don't forget about the audio one.
Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. Sound plays a more important role in human behavior and our decision making than you may realize. In this podcast, I'll help you understand the art and science of sound so you can better influence others in business and your life. I'm your host, Jody Krangle. Let's delve a little deeper. This is the second part of my interview with Dr. David Allan. It's interesting how these things kind of evolve over time. Can you talk a little about that? Because I know that, for instance, for McDonald's, there was a huge evolution of that song to the mnemonic that they're using now.
Yeah, and it's still it's very difficult to get to the okay, who got paid for what with that commercial. They put Justin out there, and they didn't think it was going to be Justin. They weren't sure at some level because he was new and just going solo and that kind of stuff.
Well, they wanted rap, right? They
Yeah,
wanted something like R&B rap,
yeah,
like
what?
a hip hop artist, I think.
Yeah, well, they were looking.
And he wasn't really.
Yeah, I mean, marketing tells you should go look at your target
Yeah.
demographic, and then try to give them what they want, and then try to get more customers, but make sure you don't piss off the old customers. So that makes, from a music sense, if you were programming a radio station or doing a playlist, and you had friends coming over, you might put something a little eclectic on your playlist, but you're not going to go completely to the other side of what they might enjoy. So the same thing happens in audio branding. Is Are you going to, let's give them what they want and then some. Um, and so, and Coca-Cola, I mean, McDonald's, you know, it McDonald's always, always felt very musical to me, you know, jingles back in the day. I got a broom and a pan, and I played this old commercial that my students just kind of glass over at me, but they were having problems with cleanliness, and um, they could have told people, 100 times that we're clean now. You don't have to worry about it. But they did a little fancy jingle with guys dancing with mops and that kind of stuff, and you deserve a break today, and it was hugely successful because
We remember
it was
music.
fun. It was it was fun,
Yeah.
and it's hard to fix a shaky attitude. If the consumer thinks that something is bad, that's the hardest thing to fix in marketing, is to tell them it's not bad anymore, or it's not as bad as you think.
Yeah.
And so having a little fun with it certainly helps.
Sure. Being able to make fun of yourselves, I
Correct.
guess, is,
Is
yeah. A
exactly.
little humility goes a long
Yep.
way.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
Moving on to, I wanted to get to some of the other stories in the supersonic logos,
Hmm.
because you had mentioned Walter, who did the Intel logo,
Hmm.
and there was something between him and ABBA. And I'm wondering if you could explain that.
Yeah, the man is the sweetest man ever.
Yeah.
Like he it couldn't have been nicer, and he is. He talks about his logo being the grandfather of it all, but he's the grandfather of it all. And as far as a audio logo getting, you know, whenever you talk about audio logos, you have to mention Intel. and
Oh, yeah.
um, and he's was there, but classically trained um, in Austria. Thought he was going to be a classical something, and then he has this strange diversion into an ABBA-like song in a very bizarre video. Um, and I was like, how does this happen? He goes, I don't know. We were college kids and we thought this would be cool, and he had a great,
So they were
yeah.
they were using a sample? Was that?
Yeah, well, the great story about that was the great story from him. He goes, I go, how did you ever get ABBA to agree to let you sample their music when they were so
Well,
hot?
technically he didn't.
And that, I'm telling you, if the video is just so bizarre. And he says, well, we got the manager on the phone and he was intoxicated. And he said, okay. And we faxed something over to him and he signed it. And, he goes, and then we were off to the races. And when we did it, we got sued by ABBA. And then we produced the fax, and that was that. And he
Wow.
said, it's just,
How
it just
lucky.
happened. He says, but that allowed him to do a lot of the stuff that he ended up, coming to the States and getting hooked up with Intel and doing that campaign. But his classical training is, there's a video out there where they went back and did a remake of the Intel campaign and showed how closely it is to the classical era and that kind of stuff.
Well, they redo it every few years, right? Don't
Yeah,
they refresh it or something?
yeah, he's still on the hook. In so many
It's a good
ways.
hook to be
In
on.
so many ways. Yeah. The thing is that most of these guys, the common thread to the book is that a lot of these guys and girls did these logos as work for hire. So they don't get
Mm,
a little piece every time that thing plays.
yeah.
And
And that played a lot.
yeah, and
I remember when the 286 and 386 were coming out. I remember all of that.
yeah, and they're no joke when you try to get permissions for them. They felt like they needed to give me permission to talk about the audio logo in a book, in addition to the print logo. And I do have an authorization to talk with Walter, who is still on the hook, and then anything he might say about the audio logo, they wanted to see it. So
I guess I can see. But it does say one thing. It says that they really value that audio logo, that it is a part of their marketing in, their whole empire. And yeah, they're treating it seriously.
yeah, and my worlds collide a lot, and in marketing, that was using the Intel audio logo in the marketing campaign to explain, I don't know where the chip is in my laptop and I'm not entirely sure what it does. And, you know, I do look for the little sticker on my laptop that says Intel inside, but I know it's in there. I know when I hear the advertising that it's in there because they did, it's called co-op, advertising where they pay a little bit and, when they're in the Dell computer, then Dell pays a little bit.
That was
And
just brilliant.
yeah,
That was utter brilliance. I remember hearing that logo so many times in advertising when in the early days of computers. It was everywhere. Just and getting that part of an advertising budget to put your stuff everywhere. It was sheer brilliance.
yeah, I mean, it's, we talk a little bit, I talk a lot about the fact that, that they did try at the very beginning to do the who, what, when, where, and why. This is a chip. This is what it does. This is how much it costs. This is how it works. This is where it is. iPod did the same. Apple did the same thing with the iPod at the very beginning. They had a very boring commercial where somebody's showing you how to download music into this thing, and this is how long it'll take, and this is how much it's going to cost. And then they just did the silhouettes where they had people, colored colors of silhouette people with white iPod headphones walking down a street. And because people at some level didn't care how much it cost.
Yeah,
Or
when it becomes a lifestyle thing, then you know it's arrived.
Yeah, but audio drives that, I think, more than anyone, because then you not only you feel it, not just see it. And once you feel something, you tend to have to feel it again, and then you have to go get whatever makes you feel that connection. And in this case, the iPods, or
Yeah.
the Intel chip inside.
Are you looking for ways to improve your company's or podcast's impact? You'd be surprised how powerful the use of an intentional audio branding strategy can be. Want to know more? I have a free downloadable PDF that gives you my 5 tips for implementing an intentional audio strategy at voiceoversandvocals.com/audio-branding-strategy. That location does ask to put you on a mailing list, just to send you updates on when the new podcasts come out. But if you really don't want to give your email out, I understand. Just contact me directly. My email is all over my website, and I'll make sure you get that PDF without needing to sign up anywhere. If you do sign up, though, you also get access to a resources section called The Studio, where I have videos, white papers, and PDFs, discounts from my guests, and snippets of audio from my guests that no one else gets to hear. So maybe it's worth your while. Totally up to you. And of course, if you're looking for voiceovers, you can get in touch with me about that too. Now, back to the podcast. Well, it became synonymous with quality.
It did.
Which was really an interesting way to do it, because then it became well, I'm good enough to have this quality thing, as opposed to I'm just buying a computer.
Yeah. And they were really good at, I'm sure that there were many chips that were, and probably still are, that are just as good as the Intel chip. There's no reason to think that that's better than any other one, but they
have the better advertising.
They have and to a certain level, when I do this lecture, I go, everybody pull out their laptops. How many people have the Intel logo on there? And a couple of them will look at it and they go, I don't have Intel inside. I go, well, I hope you didn't pay as much as the rest of the people did. And I go, and they're like, wow, do you think it's not as good as those other ones? I go, I guess you should have thought about that before your parents bought you that laptop. But
oh boy,
it's, it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Yeah, they did a really great job with that. Is there a favorite Sonic logo that you have from the book? Or are we just talking, we're going back to Coca-Cola again?
No, I love all my children. It's hard. It's
okay.
It's hard not to like the Intel situation, and I'm biased because
sure.
I'm biased because of Walter and what a beautiful man he is, and he's he's zoomed into things that when I've presented about to the class or about Intel and that kind of stuff. And
oh, how great.
He really doesn't have to be. He could be John Williams. He could be, I'm not going to talk about it anymore because I've talked about it enough. But I think he's just a beautiful man. But most of the ones that talk to me, I think, realize that in some cases, this is their legacy. And
it's a good point.
And when they talk, they want to talk, about these kind of things. And, but, John Williams has a lot of other stuff to talk about. So I can see where Jaws may not be something he wants to talk about on a regular basis.
Well, part of what I find so interesting about all of this is that you make these logos, these people are making these logos, and then you never know what's going to happen with them because they really don't come into their own until 20 years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you really know that
the rubber met the road, because that's when they really become super effective. The legacy that they create for the company that's using them.
Yeah,
Um,
you really don't
yeah.
know how successful it's going to be. You see, you know, you watch songwriters, listen to songwriters, and they go, "What did you know that was going to be, the best song of 2020?" And they're like,
Hmm.
"No, I didn't. I just wrote it and let it out there, and away it went. And
Yeah.
there was a feature not too long ago about I'm going to age myself here, but the theme to the Mary Tyler Moore Show,
Hmm.
and that when they wrote the theme for when the guy in the band wrote the theme for that, he's like, I didn't, something I did, and I thought it was nice. And then when I
Was that another work for hire?
well, I looked that up too, like right after there, and then what it was it wasn't. So
Good for
he went to
him.
audition,
Hmm.
um, and he was like, "Well, they're really liking this," and he goes, "I'm going to tell them I have to sing the song because they didn't want him to sing the song."
Oh.
And he's like, "I'm going to tell them no song, no me." And
Hmm.
he goes, "For some reason, I decided to publish it, and when that wasn't a big deal. And so every time that, you're going to make it after all, Mary Tyler Moore's song played,
Hmm.
um, he made money. So he and the band that was connected with it. So,
Yeah, good for them.
but he didn't, he's like, I didn't know that. I
And
didn't know
it's
this.
rare.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rare that the songwriter knows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, I didn't know the show was going to make it. I didn't know the song was going
Hmm.
to make it. Who knows that kind of stuff. You do your best work. And most of the audio logo people, they had no idea that it would be anything other than, a couple of notes.
Hmm. Yeah.
And there's plenty that are not in the book that we're not talking about today, I'm sure. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is happening all over the place. It's just some of them are more well known than others. But where do you see this going in the future? I mean, obviously it's becoming bigger as we go.
yeah, I think that, I think audio branding as a strategy will continue to grow, and that not just a sonic logo. It's everything you're hearing everywhere connected with the brand, um, and that kind of stuff. And there's lots of areas that are still underutilized when it comes to audio, and supermarkets and wine stores and that kind of stuff, are
Yeah.
you know
A lot of the things Steve talked about. Yeah.
yeah. So there's so much room to grow there. And as far as the audio logos part, I can't imagine. And again, I always have to preface this by saying I know it's not just about the audio logo, but I just can't imagine that when you're designing a print logo, why you don't also sit there and go, wonder what that thing would sound like if it could make sound, and then develop that too, and then
Hmm.
present both of them at the same time or in combination, and give yourself one more sense to have. I mean, a lot of the brands have a smell. There's
Hmm.
McDonald's
Yep.
has French fries, and I mean, there's a lot of them already using that sense. Don't forget about the audio one.
Sure. I suspect that what happens with that is that the advertising agency that's taking care of the visuals is completely separate from the one that's taking care of the audio. So they're not talking to each other until one decides to contact the other.
True, true, and then a lot of them, the that the agency logo generating type areas in marketing are pretty well set up, and they don't probably have someone with a guitar and a
Yeah.
keyboard in the back room going, okay, we're going to work on the print up here, and it's
Yeah.
purple, and this is what the letters are going to look like. Write something.
What does purple sound like?
Right. Yeah, right. Write something.
Yeah.
So you have to, and the people like, Steve would probably rather them not have it, because then they can swoop in and go, have we got an audio branding strategy for you?
Well, I mean, they are separate things, really, if you think about it. I mean, you could have one large advertising agency that took care of both parts, but they are kind of separate departments. So you really need to be able to have a company or a department that can come in like Steve or like someone like him that would come in and actually build a whole strategy around it rather than tacking it on to the visual. Because it's not a tack on. It's like it's part and parcel of the brand DNA, and you need to consider it that way.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, and I don't want my nice family doctor to operate on my heart. I want to
Well,
I want to
exactly,
go to
yeah.
a specialist who understands
Yeah.
just heart. So, shout out to all the people like Steve that are doing this kind of stuff, because they're uniquely qualified to do it, and to not only do it well, but to take the whole activity of it to another level that it isn't at today, so that I can be writing books about it tomorrow.
Oh yeah, and I can interview them
Right.
because that's what I'm all about.
I'm
Yeah.
with you.
I know it takes some effort to write a review, and I know how busy and, let's face it, kind of stressful our lives are right now, so it means a lot that you take the time to let me know how you feel about the podcast. Bruce at Mindfulness Mode writes, "This is a gift to any business. This podcast gives a whole new perspective to branding, and every business owner needs to hear it. Jody has a terrific voice and presence as an interviewer, and she draws out the best from her guests. There are powerful lessons you need to hear right now to pump new life into your business." Thank you so much for your thoughtful words, Bruce. I really appreciate it. And now, back to the show.
It's really a fascinating study. I spoke with, just recently, actually, his episodes appeared, Rajiv Raja, who is the fellow who does brand music and made the MOGO for MasterCard.
Right.
So he's the fellow who made sure that the music was geographically sensitive, I guess,
Yep.
is what you would call it. So that MasterCard sound can be heard throughout the world using different instruments and different beats and such, depending on where they're heard, and still make as big an impact. So it's such a huge field, and there's so much more to be explored. And it shouldn't be as unusual as it seems to be to most people that sound is important.
Yeah, and MasterCard is. I give them a little shout out in the book. They couldn't make the Hall of Fame yet. They're too young for it, but they got they got a future mention because they get it, and it has to be customized. It has to be sort of mass customization in some capacity, because not everyone likes the same type of music.
Well, exactly.
So,
It's becoming really dynamic, which is what I'm loving about this whole industry, is that as it changes, it becomes more personalized,
right. Yeah.
which I think is fantastic. And that's what's happening with all of our tech, really.
Yep.
I mean, if you think about it, that's the advertisements that we're seeing are personalized to what we like,
Right.
right? All of this. So why shouldn't the audio that we hear be the same thing?
So true. So true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you working on right now? I know that you just released another book. How long ago was that?
Well, I have the Supersonic logos, which just came out, and
Or are you working on another one? Okay.
Yeah, I am. I'm into NFTs now. So it started Next Planet Over with Kings of Leon NFT'd their album, NFT Yourself, and it started a little bit with that, and it's taken off into a textbook that I'm writing called the ABCs of NFTs.
I like the title.
And I'm I'm fully integrated. So I have a new podcast called the NFT PhD. Um,
Nice.
and so I'm looking pretty hard at that. I don't have any of the fancy. I don't have a Bored Ape. I don't have a Crypto Kitty or
Yeah.
um, even a doodle. But I'm fascinated by it, and the blockchain, which does hurt my head, and
Yes.
NFTs that I'm the NFT PhD with somebody. I'm trying to learn how to be a PhD in NFTs,
Hmm.
and the people that I'm talking to are doing it. So um, I'm looking a lot at that these days. It seems like so.
Sure. I'm having discussions on Clubhouse about audio NFTs, actually, with a fellow named Ahmed Bouzid,
Mm.
who runs a company called witlingo.com. And he has found a way to mint audio NFTs through his company. So you may want to talk with him.
I will. I will. I will. I know they're going in all different directions
Hmm.
with music. You know. Um,
Well, my thing is voiceover, right?
hmm
So being able to authenticate your
hmm
voice is actually going to become very important.
Very.
So yeah, it's a really interesting area. I look forward to hearing more about that from you. Yeah.
Yeah, and and it's just. I mean, a lot of the people that are in the space have been thinking about it for a very long time, but it's just
Hmm.
starting to get so much more publicity. And in popular music, um, the music can be NFT'd, obviously, and it could have a lot to do with the artists not selling their collections at some point because they can retain, original ownership and that kind of stuff. And a lot of art is coming out with music, and yeah, the audio on the blockchain is for someone like you, is extremely important that you own your voice, obviously, and all that you're doing with it. Um, but it would be the ultimate proof for it to be NFT'd and for it to be on the blockchain. And you know, it's so much more than just going to a lawyer and getting something notarized.
Definitely.
And yeah, it's the it's the next big thing in audio. No, I don't know what I
Yeah,
don't
well,
know. I don't know.
we don't really know, but it's something new. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting direction to be heading in. I mean, definitely we need protection.
Yeah, the for some strange reason I'm getting a master's of law from USC, and don't ask me why.
What degree don't you
I
have?
know, I know. I don't have an MD, so if you're
Okay,
with me and you choke on something, I'm not going to save you.
you're
But
on your
yeah,
own.
I'm going to look around to see if anybody knows how to do the Heimlich. Um, but in that class, I took entertainment law and music law this semester, and the entertainment lawyers were looking. A lot of film and movies are being NFT'd now, and at the beginning of the semester, the music lawyer was, and I'm not seeing a lot of it, and then by the end, he's showing me, you know, clauses and contracts that account for the music being NFT'd, and he. I had one particular class where I think I did more of it than he did of talking about NFTs. But I loved him and I loved the class. So we'll see where audio goes with it. It certainly
Yeah.
you know it's somewhat easier for audio because it has a pattern, a digital pattern already. It
Hmm.
doesn't have to be digitalized because it's already digitalized. It just has to be minted, you know? And so that's just one more layer of protection. Um, and, I'm sure that audio logos are going to be NFT'd.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure, I'm sure Intel has NFT their logo, although I probably should check into that and find out.
Yeah, if they haven't, they should.
They should. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how can people get in touch with you if they'd like to learn more about what you're doing?
I think the easiest way is to buy my book. No, the easiest way is through St. Joe's in Philadelphia. That's still the home base.
Okay.
Professor on a daily basis. So Allan, DALLAN at sju.edu. I'm great with getting back to people, and love to talk about this kind of stuff.
Do you have a URL where someone can
Yeah,
find you?
so that's the best place. I have some stuff going on with the NFTs, but that is sort of still a work in progress. So I'd be embarrassed to
Mhm.
send them there yet. So I think that's the best place to do it. I have a lot of side hustles, as my friends say. I have
Are
a
you on LinkedIn?
I'm there. I'm on Twitter, and I have
Okay.
a podcast platform for professors called Profcasters, that I'm putting professors that have podcasts on them.
Fantastic.
And so profcasters.com, you can find me at stjoes.com. The NFTPhD.com is fairly
Fairly new?
It's fairly new and pretty, just doesn't have a lot of content on it yet. So
Hmm.
yeah,
You'll get there.
yeah,
There's more to be said.
yeah. I'll never be as efficient as you are at podcasting, though. You are a machine, and
Well, I've had to by now,
yeah,
but I'm only doing one.
yeah. And you're from a voiceover standpoint, your voice is second to none. I mean,
Well, thank
it
you.
really is very, very well developed and distinguishable, and it has feeling and nice. It's and for my radio days, we didn't always have the best commercials or audio come in. We always thought we were better than half of the people that were doing the commercials that we were putting on tape. But you're the real deal.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. And thank you so much for being here today. I learned a lot, and it was a really interesting conversation, and I'm sure there's more to discuss in the future.
No, thanks to you for having me.
Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, why not tell a friend about this podcast? It's available in all the usual locations. Until next time.